Welcome to the Indigo Maths channel. Today we will be proving the quadratic formula. So the first step in proving the quadratic formula is to write out our quadratic expression in terms of some unknown variables. So here we go. We've got ax squared plus bx plus c. And how the proof works is it uses completing the square. So we're just going to be going by the completing the square method. So the first step, as we have our first coefficient over here, a, we need to remove it, just so we can have a nice complete perfect square in the form x plus, I don't know, let's say theta, just a random value there. So what we want to do is we want to divide everything by a, let me just do a nice colour there. So we're dividing the first coefficient by a, the second coefficient by a, and the third one by c by a, all of them by a, and such this will cancel out the first a here by a. So we now have x squared plus b over a x plus c over a. Now the second step when doing stuff like this is that we put the c onto the other side. So we do x squared plus b over a x, and then equals, and then we just take away the c over a on both sides, so we have equals negative c over a. Nice, that's all done. We can now move on to the next step, which is to work out what we need for that next part, which is, let's do a nice magenta colour. So we now have x squared plus b over a x, and then we can ignore this side for now. So what we need to do is we need to half b over a, which is b over 2a, and then square it. So we can do that. We can do b over 2a is the half, and then squaring it will make it b squared over 2 squared a squared, which simplifies down to that there. Oh, there. So plus b squared over 4a squared, and that's also got to be added onto the other side. So we now have a b squared over 4a squared minus c over a there, and that's just there because obviously we have to balance both sides out. Now this allows us to a perfect square, so this time we're going to change to a nice light blue over here, so we can have our x plus, and then you can see the things, that's the thing that's the multiplication thing, so it's going to be a b over 2a squared, because then that squared is b squared over 4a squared, and b over 2a times 2 is b over a, and times the x, of course, there, and there's the x squared there. So now we have that equals this right here, just down there. But we want to simplify this out because we can't really square root it in its current form because we have a subtraction in the middle. There's no multiplication or anything. So let's put it all into one fraction. To do this, what we can do, we can see, well, we can just multiply this side by 4a, just like that, and that will get us our 4a squared, and we'll get 4ac on top. And so now we can finally add the fractions together and minus the top, so it will convert into actually, let me do it on the right, equals b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared, just like that. Now the next step is the square rooting part. So we have it in the formula, that, and then remember it's equaling the b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared, but we still have that square on the other side. So to isolate x, we must square root, of course. So let's just let me just get out the rubber, good old rubber here. Do that there, and square root. And remember, when square rooting, you always square root the top and the bottom with any indices rule, exponents and everything. You do the top and bottom of the fraction. So what we're going to do is we're going to square root the bottom first because it's just an easy one. We can see here. So square root of 4a squared, which is, of course, 2a. And the top, we can't simplify down, so we're just going to keep it like that. So next step, what we want to do is we want to minus this b over 2a on the other side. As you can see, look, common denominators, how perfect there. So what we can do is we can minus that on both sides. Let me change colour to yellow. It's quite a rainbow of colours I've been using actually. Minus b over 2a, and then that can rub out on the other side. And so now we know what x equals for the quadratic formula, but there is a mistake, and the mistake is we must make it plus minus the square root. And never forget this, which is that when you're square rooting something, the square root function outputs on your calculator a positive one, always. So what we want to do is we want to do the negative one as well, because of course negative 7 squared, just as 7 squared, equals 49. So remember the plus minus there. Always remember, I actually forgot to say that earlier. So let's minus this. So now we have let's neaten it up. So we can just minus it on the top, so we get in our final colour of, I guess let's do green, we have x equals minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And that's how you prove the quadratic formula.